Thank you for joining me. A couple of things I want to do in this video. Firstly, I want to take a bit of a look at what this channel is about and where I see it going in the future. The second thing I want to do is just to take you gently through my kind of picture taking process and thought process when I'm out in the field taking an image. I've never really delved in great detail into this, and so I thought this might be an opportunity just to give that a little bit of a try. Did you ever have one of those times when you thought, I really need to decide what it is that I'm doing? And you see, I definitely face this problem with my YouTube channel. And I feel that I need to decide what it's about. Is it about photography? Is it about wild camping? And I have come to a decision on that. And the decision is really, it's about photography. And I say that because when I look back to the roots of why I began wild camping in the first place, it was because I wanted to facilitate the photographic stuff. I wanted to get in the right place at the right time of day or night so that I could take pictures that would otherwise be difficult to take. This is a video that's difficult to take because it's windy. I hope that the wind noise isn't too great. It's blowing the gimbal about a bit. So, the channel is called DSLR Life, Digital Single Lens Reflex, and that in itself ought to tell a story. It's about taking pictures. It's about the stories behind taking those pictures, and it's really not about the camping. The camping is a means to an end. The camping is part of that story, but primarily I want to tell the story of finding little magical places like this and turning a scene like this into a photograph. How do you do that? What is it about this scene that draws the eye? I love this stand of trees, and what I love about it is I love the motion in the leaves. I love the way that the wind is exposing this silvery underside to these leaves in these birch trees. Are they birch trees? I think they're birch trees. Silver birch. And so you've got this great contrast in the foliage here between the dark green and the silver green leaves, and I can hear the rustling of the leaves in the wind, and there's these beautiful at the top, these beautiful silvery boughs, there's tree trunks that are just about showing themselves, and I want to capture some of this. So what is it about this picture I really want to capture? Well, there's a number of things. Firstly, it's the leaves. Secondly, it's the motion in them. Thirdly, there's the tree trunks themselves. There's this path or track running alongside them that winds away nicely into the distance. And there's the fact that there is this line of trees. We've even got the occasional rather pleasant horse standing by. The first question I want to ask myself in this situation is, am I in the right place? And what's going to give me the best view of these trees? Do I want to go really wide angle and come further back? Maybe try a different angle. Maybe I want a longer focal length, but from further back still. I don't want to cut off part of the stand of the trees, so I need to be in the right place to keep them all in the frame, really. Or do I go really wide and do I go in closer? And this is where your phone is just really useful, I think, for trying to work out composition. Is this track a bit too distracting? Is it better that I get down really low to the ground so that it occupies less of the image? And can I just come in a bit closer? So maybe I want to try a combination of these different compositions. So don't assume that the first place that you stop and plonk down your tripod is the best place to take the image that you want to take. So for me, with this, I think I want this track leading in to the scene, drawing us into these trees. I actually like it to be really quite a wide angle image because I want to look up and get the richness of the blues in the sky there as well. We've got these lovely clouds. Let's make the most of them. So I think this is where I'm going to settle. I'm going to put my wide angle lens as wide as it's going to go. I'm going to put the camera down low. I'm going to shoot up. I'm going to take a short exposure. I'm also going to take a longer exposure and see if I can get some motion both in the clouds and in the foliage, and I'll see which of those images I like the most. So here we are. Let's just tell you a little bit about what's going on here. So firstly, you can see I've put the camera down really low on the tripod, and it's on the tripod because I know I'm going to want to take a longer exposure, so it's going to need to be still. I'm in manual mode on the camera here, and we can look at the settings there, and if I just press the shutter button there, it'll show on the screen here. I'm on 1/30th of a second at the moment, f11, and I'm in manual mode. I've put the ISO right down to ISO 100 on this camera. That's the lowest ISO that I can go because I want to have a longer exposure. So I'm on 1/30th of a second, and the camera is telling me that at the moment that would overexpose. So I'm going to take that down to 1/100th of a second on f11. I'm going to focus on the trees and in the foreground, and that should give me a nice sharp image throughout. Because I'm about 15 yards away from the tree, that should give me a nice sharp image throughout. So let's just check the focus. Right, we're focused, we're nice and sharp. I've put the camera here on timer mode, so I'm going to press the shutter. It'll take a couple of seconds, steady the camera, and then it'll take the shot. So let's have a go. Okay. Now I am pointing up towards the sky, and so there's a good chance that I might blow out some of the highlights. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop down. I'm going to go to 1/200th of a second, a full stop, quicker, and we'll take another shot. There we go. Let's take a look at what those have come out like. Now, at a 200th of a second or 100th of a second shutter speed, whilst that won't completely freeze the action in the leaves, it's certainly not going to show us any motion. And I think what I would quite like to do now is set up for a long exposure. So I'm going to get out my long exposure kit. So I'm not going to use a polarizer on this, because looking up at the sky with a really wide field of view, if I use a circular polarizer, then some of the sky is going to be a really, really dark blue, and some of it a much lighter blue, and I really don't want that. So there's a couple of approaches that I could take here. I'm going to try a shot with a graduated soft neutral density graduated filter, and I'm going to return the exposure to, I'm going to go back to an 80th of a second actually. It seems to have got brighter, so let's try that. Let's just refocus and go. So that's with a soft grad. Just going to check through the viewfinder. Okay, and another one. We go with a horse going across. What a beautiful horse, look at that. Okay. I'm not going to use a hard grad because I would have a nasty line, dark line in the image, and the top of the trees just wouldn't look right. So if I want to adjust the exposure for the sky any further, I can do that in editing. Now for a longer exposure. Now, a polarizer would cut down the amount of light, and it might cut it down to the point where I actually captured some of the motion in the leaves and got a little bit of blurring. That's possible. But that does present its own problems. I'll clean up my filter. Yeah, so if I used the polarizer, I would get some really, really intense colours. But as I say, I would get this nasty effect in the sky, and I really don't want that. So, here we go. Graduated filter, 10 stop, graduated filter by Leaf Filters. This is really going to slow down this image. Now, the image I just took was at 1/80th of a second, so I've got a little app that will tell me what speed I need to be taking that image at. But it's 10 stops, and so there is a little trick here. I'm going to wind my speed dial by 10 stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, that gives me a 10-second exposure, which is probably too much really. Ideally I'd have a 6-stop filter here maybe, or even a 4-stop. But 10 stop is all I have, so I'm going to have to make do with that, and we'll do a 10-second exposure and we'll see what we get. Okay, I think we're okay. That's pretty good in terms of exposure level. And we're certainly going to have plenty of motion in that image. I'm just going to have to take it off the camera and double check what we got. Yeah, certainly plenty of motion in that image, probably too much, but it's certainly going to be a different kind of photograph, that's for sure. Okay, well, I think that's what I wanted to achieve here. It's just an example really of some of the process to go through in looking at a shot. We've checked our composition, we've looked around, see how it looks from different angles. And I've tried different shutter speeds, and I've used different filters to cope with the light conditions that we've got here. I've decided whether or not to use a polarizer and so on. So there we go. I'm going to move on and see if I can find another target. So something else that I'm doing today is really I'm on the lookout for locations. Somewhere that I could come. Oh, just look at this tree. I love this. What a magnificent tree. And this one, I love the colour of the trunks there. Let's go wide. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous, amazing. So this is one of those videos that could just go on indefinitely, because I spent quite a long afternoon out in the New Forest, and I don't want to use all that material up at once. Now I'm very conscious that I've used quite a lot of jargon in this video. And so if you're relatively new to photography and there are things that you would like me to explain that you didn't quite understand, or things that you'd like me to cover in a bit more detail, why not drop a note in the comments, and in forthcoming episodes I will do my best to answer those questions. So if you would like to see what happened next, particularly in terms of finding other locations and what I've done with them since, or what I'm planning to do with them, then join me next time and we'll have another look at that. Meantime, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.